Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Above the Rim Rundown, where we run down all things NBA. I am one of your hosts, Memo, and right beside me, I've got Hoops. How you doing?
What's going on, man? Overall, I've been doing pretty good, I will say. Just pretty much same old routine in life for the most part. And then, obviously, this week, I guess in a way you can say a more quiet week in the NBA because aside from the NBA Cup games, there were either not a lot of games or not very many exciting games. So it was a little bit bizarre. It almost felt like low key, it almost felt like it was like a mini all-star break in a way because of like the lack of activity. Nonetheless, we do have some content to talk about, primarily NBA Cup related, and I think overall it's been pretty much about the same. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Very tired. I'm like so tired. I don't know why these last few days I've been like really tired, but I've been good. I guess watching some basketball. I was very locked in this time. I was like actually taking notes while watching the game, so we could have a good rundown for you all today. But yeah, just been working, exercising. I played basketball for a little bit today. Just shoot some hoops and stuff. But yeah, nothing much honestly. So I guess we could just jump right into this and talk about some NBA Cup basketball. Right after going over the standings. So let me pull that up. Whose turn is it for West? Is it my
I
turn?
think it's your turn.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over the West standings. Starting at number 15, it's the Pelicans with a 5-21 record. Then it's the Jazz with a 5-19 record. The Trailblazers with an 8-16 record. The Kings with a 13-13 record. The Spurs with a 12-12 record. The Lakers with a 13-12 record. The Clippers with a 14-12 record. Suns with a 13-11 record. Timberwolves 13-11 record. Nuggets 13-10 record. Warriors 14-10 record. Mavericks 16-9 record. Rockets 17-8 record. Grizzlies 18-8 record, and the OKC Thunder 19-5 record. And I did not say the seedings, but obviously, I was going from 15 to 1 backwards, so I guess you guys could piece that puzzle on your own. Uh, Hoops, can you do the East, please?
Yes, sir. So starting at number 15 at the very bottom, and the worst record in the league is still the Washington Wizards at 3-20. At number 14, we got the Raptors at 7-19. At number 13, we got the Hornets at 7-18. At number 12, we got the Sixers at 7-16. At number 11, we got the Pistons at 10-16. At number 10, we got the Nets at 10-15. At number 9, we got the Bulls at 11-15. At number 8, we got the Pacers at 11-15. At number 7, we got the Hawks at 14-12. At number 6, we got the Bucks at 13-11. At number 5, we got the Heat at 13-10. At number 4, we got the Knicks at 15-10. Number 3, we got the Magic at 17-10. Number 2, we got the Celtics at 20-5. And at number 1, sitting at the top of both the Eastern Conference and the entire NBA, we got still the Cleveland Cavaliers with the best record in the league at 22-4. So those are the Eastern Conference standings.
All right, so we have to just mention that really quickly, get that out of the way, because the majority of this episode is covering the NBA Cup. We're doing an NBA Cup rundown, and this one is actually going to be interesting because in this episode, we're only covering the first round of the knockout round. By the time this episode is out, the I guess semifinals, I believe, would have already been played already. So although we're talking about the first round, we're making our predictions about the semifinals. By the time this episode is out, the the semifinal games would be already played. So it'll be definitely interesting to see how our takes age, especially in a very short time span. With the game being tomorrow, and then in a couple more days, our episode is out. Uh, we'll see how it goes. And so far, I think for both of us, our predictions have been 50-50, right? Uh, right? Like we had the
I think so.
first round at least the same, if I remember correctly. But yeah, let's now talk about the first round, starting with the Mavs and Thunder. Okay, and I'll actually have you start things off. How watching this game? How did you, I guess, like the game? How did you um, feel about the Thunder's impressive performance throughout basically the entire game?
Yeah, so obviously Thunder were have been just showing they've been mighty impressive and dominant as they have been for most of the season. So obviously Mavs went out to a strong start. They went up by as much as 8 very early in the first quarter. However, from there, everything went downhill fast for the Mavs. The Thunder turned that deficit into a lead very quick. And after the late first quarter, the Mavs never had the lead again in the game. Thunder just dominated the rest of the way. They went up by as much or as 20 in the fourth quarter. And in the fourth quarter, the Mavs tried to make a little comeback attempt. And doing so, they were able to pull to within 8. Ultimately, OKC was way too much to handle. They said, "All right, we're gonna let you guys have some hope, but we're not gonna let you guys complete the comeback." And so OKC was able to ultimately pull away. And as we both predicted, OKC was clearly the superior team in this match. Um, I say the Mavs definitely had a good run in the NBA Cup, and if anything, give them momentum for the rest of the season. But this game just wasn't meant to be for them. So overall, I'd say the result really wasn't shocking to me because we both knew that OKC was gonna win. But that being said, what were your thoughts on this game between the Mavs and the Thunder?
Well, as you said, not shocking that OKC won. They're the best team in the West at the moment. They have the best defense in the league. So I thought they were going to win. I just didn't expect it to be so dominant. With the defense especially was insane. Like Luka, Kyrie, they both entered the torture chamber. Luke Dort was insane defending both of them to the point where there's a lot of controversy because it seemed like Dort was grabbing onto Luka a lot. There was this video going viral of Dort like basically putting his hands on Luka's like nipples, like it's like right there on the chest. It's kind of crazy, but that's what the Thunder do. They are a scrappy, aggressive, defensive-minded group, and yeah, it caused Luka to only score 2 points in the first half. That's the least amount of points in a half in his NBA career. He ended up with only 16 points. He did have 11 rebounds, 5 assists, but 6 turnovers. So he ended up with more turnovers than assists. And again, that is largely because of the insane defense by the Thunder. Kyrie also didn't have the best game ever. None of the Mavs players scored more than 20 points. The highest scorers were uh, Najee Marshall and Klay Thompson, who both had 19 points each. It's kind of crazy that in my prediction video, I said that Klay Thompson needed to prove that he is worth the contract. He is worth starting. And needs to show up for the big games, and that's exactly what he did. He had like crucial minutes towards the end of the fourth. Unfortunately, I did not think that Kyrie and Luka would have such bad games, but that was mostly because of the Thunder defense. They were blitzing them, they were doubling like crazy, and there wasn't really much they could do because all five players on the Thunder are great defenders. So uh, even if they leave their man, they know that another OKC Thunder will rotate and help when needed. So yeah, it was all about defense and I guess offense, especially for Shea, who had 39 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, a block, and 5 threes, which is impressive for him because he's not much of a 3-point shooter. But still, impressive game by Shea. Impressive performance by the whole Thunder. There was several players had great games. J Dub had 18 points. Alex Caruso was hustling like crazy. His stats might not look crazy. We've been saying this over and over again, how his stats aren't always, super shiny, super impressive looking. But when you actually watch him play and you watch him like dive for every ball, getting those steals, you can tell why that every team that has Alex Caruso loves Alex Caruso. And yeah, I guess that's it. A few shocking things, I guess. Oh, I was surprised on how great the Thunder's rebounding was because they're shorthanded when it comes to the bigs, with Chet injured and Isaiah Hartenstein being like the only big there. They were still able to out rebound the Mavs 52-44, and the Mavs have some impressive bigs on their side with Lively, Gafford. They were missing PJ Washington, which they probably really needed, who was a superstar when they faced the Thunder in the playoffs last year. Had some great games, contributed by draining threes. They definitely missed him out there. But yeah, speaking of threes, also, the Thunder erupted from the 3-point land and made 20 out of 50 threes, which is an insane number. They were 40% from three. So, yeah, impressive game from the Thunder. There's a lot to like on their end. And yeah, it's disappointing to see the way that the Mavs lost. It kind of reminded me of watching them lose in the finals last year, just being absolutely dominated. And it sucks because I know you're not necessarily a Mavs fan, but we're both like Luka fans, so it sucks to see him go out like this again. But hopefully things turn around for him. I don't know. I don't know if this team is built for prime time, but Luka is definitely a player that is hard to root against. It's hard to bet against. So I'm sure he will find that Luka magic within him and make a good run in the playoffs, hopefully. But yeah, that's basically all my thoughts on OKC.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on the whole entire take you made, really, but especially the part on the Mavs that it was very reminiscent of how badly they got dominated by the Celtics in the finals, which ironically many people kind of do think of this OKC team like the Celtics team in terms of like young, similar blueprint, all that. And yeah, it is tough to see Luka get pretty much his team not showing up the same way again. But credit to OKC, they have a really great team, arguably the best in the league from top to bottom. So it was to be expected. But definitely do hope that Luka, I guess the thing is his supporting cast is not bad. It's just that sometimes they don't show up. So hopefully they can show up in the big moments and eventually allow him to win a ring because he deserves it for sure. Um, Nonetheless, happy for OKC. Fun team to watch. Clearly, arguably the greatest team. And yeah, they deserve to win this one. And so now they are off to Vegas.
Yeah, they're off to Vegas and they're gonna face the Rockets. We're gonna stick to the West here and talk about Warriors versus Rockets, which was uh the next the game. What day was it? Wednesday. Wednesday's game.
Wednesday. Yeah, it was Wednesday.
Wednesday's game, and this was definitely a very interesting game. I'm not gonna lie though, this was probably my favorite game to watch out of the four NBA Cup games. What about you?
I think it was the best one, honestly. And a lot of it had to do with the lead shifts and momentum shifts. Because I mean, I'll t- I'll get into more of the details of the game momentarily, but pretty much like these teams would go on a lot of runs to throughout the game. At this part in time, the Rockets are dominating, then the Warriors are dominating. And then at the end, a little bit of controversy, which we will talk about in the moment, but nonetheless, I agree this is probably the most entertaining one because it seemed like the most intense game and it felt the most like an actual playoff game because of how like seriously bad these two teams both wanted to win. But I think that being said, it's a good segue for me to get into the game perhaps and like talk about what exactly happened. So, getting right into it, Rockets dominated the first half. They pretty much led the entire way and they went up by as much as 14 in the second. However, the Rockets had a really bad third quarter, and the Warriors really took advantage. They, I guess technically it wasn't like the extremely horrible quarter, but they were outscored by 8. And then the Warriors were able to take the lead heading into the fourth. But that being said, with the lead heading into the fourth, the Warriors actually dominated for most of the fourth quarter as they led for nearly the entire quarter. That is until the final seconds. And so this is where the controversy struck. So with under a minute left, Jalen Green, so Steph Curry takes a three to try to put the game on ice to put the Warriors up by 4. They still had a 1 point lead. Didn't go in. Rockets get the rebound. Jalen Green gets tries to call timeout as he's on the floor. Before he gets the timeout, refs called a foul on Jonathan Kuminga for the contact. Now, obviously, controversy there. Steve Kerr was beyond himself, like very mad about it, and I don't blame him for being mad. But later on, NBA 2 Minute Report had claimed and confirmed that it was indeed a foul, and it was the right call. Now, in the time, I will admit I was unsure whether it was really a foul. I was like, why don't they give Jalen Green the timeout? Didn't he signal the timeout? But yeah, there definitely was contact on Kuminga. Some situations you say let them play, but probably it was the right call, honestly. And 2 Minute Report revealed it was. So that. But that being said, that was clearly the difference maker. Um, Now came in very costly for the Warriors. Putting Jalen Green to the line to shoot 2 free throws, knocks down both of them, and then um, Hazinski goes for the 3 pointer for the attempt to win, and he gets blocked on the attempt by Jabari Smith. Rockets win by 1. So that foul was very crucial, and the Warriors practically handed the Rockets to win off 2 free throws, as opposed to making them work for the game-winning attempt. So yeah, definitely a bit of a controversial ending. Unfortunately, discipline aside, gotta make sure not to foul in those situations, especially when the team's in the bonus. But that was pretty much my take on this game. Memo, you want to add on to what I said via the Warriors Rockets game?
Uh, yeah, I guess. Well, you went over a good amount of the details. I'll just like add onto it, I guess. The Warriors did. I felt like the whole entire game, it was like the Rockets really dominating, and me being surprised on how the Warriors are still in this, because the Rockets defense was insane. There were so many shot clock violations. Due to the Rockets' insane defense. It was actually like insane to watch, and I really loved it. Like people say that defense is not fun to watch, but for me, it was insanely cool to see like the Rockets just swallow Kyle Anderson while he was like slowly driving into the lane and stuff like that. Like I really like to see it, but yeah, going into the fourth, it wasn't really like the Rockets were doing amazing. Like the defense was still there. There was several shot clock violations in the fourth quarter as well, but offensively they couldn't hit a bucket, and a big reason why. I hate to say it, but Draymond Green was phenomenal defensively for the Rockets. His post up defense against Şengün was very, very impressive. It's impressive at his age how he's still able to defend that well, especially from the post. Like he's not necessarily a big guy. He could play center for small ball lineups, but Şengün is like an actual center. So sitting in like handles Şengün really well down the stretch was impressive. The only time like Şengün actually scored a bucket that like really mattered in the fourth was the only time Green wasn't guarding him. It was Looney, and it was like an easy bucket for Şengün. But yeah, the Rockets were struggling a lot getting a basket in. They couldn't score for like 3+ minutes in the fourth. So that would be like a great opportunity for the Warriors to, uh, you know, take the lead, make me even like extend the lead, but they really couldn't because of the Rockets defense. And as you mentioned, Stephen Curry did like a little like push off step back three. I think off of Dylan Brooks. I think that's who he was. That's who was guarding Curry. Um, he probably should have wasted the clock a bit more. He probably should have not done too much hero ball. There probably would have been a better um, shot out there if he was a bit patient. But it really seemed like Curry wanted to win the game, and he couldn't make the shot. That's when the scramble happened. And as you mentioned, the 2 minute report said that it was a foul. But, Steve Kerr, like in his defense, he never said it wasn't a foul. He just said that these type of fouls shouldn't be called during intense moments like this, especially with how like intense and aggressive the game has been throughout the entire like game, I guess. And I do agree with him how it is weird that they're now calling this foul, especially since like it's a dive situation. Both teams are essentially fouling each other, if we're being completely honest, diving for the ball, wrestling for the ball. And I think the best point Kerr made, I agree with the most, is that they should have just given the timeout to the Rockets who were calling for it. I think that would have been the right move. The play would have stopped. There would be no free throws, and it'll still be the Rockets' ball. So I think that would have been the most fair thing to do. I don't think a call like that, even though it is technically a foul. So the ref isn't wrong for calling it. it is still a weird move to decide the game with a couple of free throws from Jalen Green, who had a awful game, but still made the 2 free throws to win it. So shout out to him. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Jamari Smith was able to block pods and seal the game. So, although it was a controversial ending, maybe the Warriors should have won this one. I honestly don't care because the Rockets impressed me so much. They are such an exciting team to watch. Defensively, they had so many great dunks. Jalen Green had a crazy crazy dunk, I believe, in the second quarter. Uh, they're just so fun to watch. And even though Curry's like the most fun player to watch in the league, debatably, the Rockets team from top to bottom, they're all like super entertaining, and it's mostly because like play by committee. It's not really hero ball over there how it is in Golden State. Everybody is contributing in different ways, and that's how they were able to get this win. They play as a team. They play great basketball, and I'm very impressed. And although I did think the Warriors were going to win this one, I'm so glad that the Rockets are moving forward. So, that's basically it. Oh, actually, one more fun fact. This was the first Rockets win against the Warriors since February 20th, 2020. That was when Harden and Westbrook were still on the team. So it's been a while too since the Rockets have beat the
Long time.
Warriors. A very long time. So they finally ended the streak on probably the most important game they've faced each other since that date.
Yeah. Um, Definitely agree with many of the things you said there. And for sure, I do believe that the refs should have just let the players play, honestly. Yes, it was a foul, but in such a big heated situation, you shouldn't let the free throws or officiating determine the outcome of the game. That being said, I am definitely glad the Warriors lost because yeah, fuck the Warriors. Um and also yeah, Rockets, they have been having an impressive season, and that was pretty much, as we mentioned last episode, the Rockets' first like test in a big situation since they got rid of James Harden. So it's definitely been a long time. And yeah, I do remember the last time that they beat the Warriors was when they still had James Harden and Russ, and it was a year when the Warriors had the worst record in the league. Haha, good times, by the way. The Lakers also had one of the best records in the league and won the championship. Yeah. Um, but definitely do agree that the Rockets, they deserve to win. Probably the Warriors would have won if it wasn't for that foul call, if we're being frank. I mean, who knows what would have happened on that final Rockets possession, but it was definitely more so handed than earned there. Rockets could have still won, but credit to them. Rockets are having a good season, and they deserve to move on, I would say, even though officiating did help them. Um, but OKC is going to be a very tough matchup for them, which we will talk about soon in the episode. But we have to talk about the Eastern Conference first. That being said, any other things we should mention about this game, or do you think we're good to move on to the East now?
Nah, I think we're good. So let's go talk about Magic versus Bucks, which was a pretty close game. I'm actually very surprised on how close this was. When we know
Me
that
too.
Franz Wagner wasn't playing, Paulo Banchero has been playing for like over a month now. So you would think that the Bucks would win handedly, but that wasn't the case, right? Hoops.
Yeah, I mean, I also thought it would be like a more dominant win by the Bucks, but it was a shockingly close game despite the Magic not having their two best players on the team. Magic got off to a hot start. They went by went up by as much as 11 early in the second, and Magic pretty much had control of much of the game up until midway through the third quarter. That's when the Bucks really started to get serious and show that we let you guys have a little bit of a run early on there, but we are clearly the better team, and that they were. Bucks went up by 10 late in the third. However, the Magic were able to get the game close again, and going down the wire, it was a back and forth game with lead shifts. Magic went up by 1 with 41 seconds left, and then Dame makes the go-ahead driving dunk attempt to give the Bucks a lead by 1. Going off that play, Jalen Suggs goes for a three-point attempt to try to put the Magic back on top, and it does not go in. And that's where the Magic had no choice but to foul. And from there on, the Bucks just put the game on ice. Bucks were able to make their clutch free throws, and they were ultimately able to pull off a gritty 5-point victory. But at the end of the day, I think that the result was not shocking on who won the game. What was shocking was how close the game was. Without further ado, I think I'll hand off the reins to Memo on your initial thoughts on this game.
Well, yeah, as we mentioned, it was very surprising to see how close this was, and it really started from the get go. Like the Magic really punched them in the face and went on a crazy run. They were looking great from the beginning, and they had a nice little lead by the end of the first. And it was actually cool seeing the beginning of the second half because both teams could not miss. Like Mo Wagner was getting easy buckets, and then Bobby Portis was going at it as well. So it was cool. Goga, just to highlight some like cool plays. Goga was able to posterize Giannis, but the funny thing is later on in the game, Giannis posterizes him. So he got his revenge almost instantly. That was cool. But going back to like the actual game and how things played out, as we mentioned, this was like a back and forth situation, especially towards the end. It was a very close game, but that's when Dame time came through. Damian Lillard came through, and this is why they traded Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard. Giannis was phenomenal throughout the entire game, especially through the first three quarters. But in the fourth quarter, that was Dame's quarter, and that's exactly what they want. They want Giannis to be dominant throughout the first three quarters, and then have Damian Lillard handle any clutch situation that is needed. That's exactly what happened. And unfortunately for the Magic, they definitely missed Franz. They definitely missed Paulo because they couldn't hit a shot. They needed some offense, and Suggs had a great game. Unfortunately, just couldn't get it done towards the end. But shout out to him. 32 points, 9 rebounds. Just a great game for him overall. The Magic just had a nice scrappy game. Mo Wagner killed it. Goga was like everywhere. It seemed like he was doing like everything. He was defending well, grabbing rebounds, offensive rebounds, scoring when needed. I like his hair too. It's very like lush, but yeah, not much to say. Just Dame time, baby, Dame time. He came through, and that is what you want to see from the Bucks. The Bucks are actually clicking right now. Giannis and Dame are actually clicking. This is what we've been waiting for ever since the trade happened, and it's finally panning out.
Agreed. Yeah, as mentioned, just result was not shocking, but how close it was the only thing that was shocking. And so the Bucks are now advancing to Vegas for the, I guess, semifinals, or if you want to call it, conference finals of the NBA Cup. That being said, I think we can move on to the second Eastern Conference knockout game, which was the Hawks versus the Knicks. And pretty much what happened this game was the first half was very different from the second half. And that being that the Knicks were very dominant in the first half, as they probably should have been, because we all predicted that the Knicks were the better team from the start. They probably should be the better team, and they showed it early on. Knicks dominated the first half, going up by as much as 12. However, the first half was as good as it got, as the Knicks did not have a good second half. Hawks ended up outscoring the Knicks by 16 in the third quarter, 34-18, and there was no looking back from there. Hawks went up by as much as 14, and ultimately they held on to win by as much as 8. And the final seconds of the game was pretty funny, where Trae was mocking the Knicks crowd by taking a knee and pretending to roll a dice, signaling the Hawks punching their ticket to Vegas. So as we all know, Knicks fans already hated Trae for beating them in the first round of the 2021 first round of the playoffs, and now this to add fuel to the fire. So yeah, Trae Young will always remain the villain to New York, and I guess he is also practically the Knicks killer, if you want to call it. And yeah, I know that I more so talked about like the trends of the game and in the end result of the game, as opposed to like the details of the game. But I think honestly, I'll leave that to Memo if you want to add more of like the details of what happened in the game, because honestly, I feel like it's just one of those games where the first half was just so much different from the second half, where one team was dominating this time, and then the other team just completely returns the favor the other way around. What did you think about this game?
I'll say I don't have much else to add on. You did cover it pretty well. Cat did have a crazy stat line like in the first half. He already had a double double in the first half and 6 stocks, 3 steals, 3 blocks, which is the first time he's ever done that in a first half. And yeah, the Knicks looked great in the first half. Don't know what happened because in the third quarter, that's when the Hawks went on their run. They had a 27-8 run to end the third. And in the third quarter, they outscored the Knicks 34-18. So really kicking their ass there. And yeah, there were several Hawks players that really came through. Not just Trae, who had a great game. Let me just double check his stats. 22 points. He had 11 assists. Good game from him. But, Jalen Johnson had 21 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. A great overall game. DeAndre Hunter was the leading scorer for the Hawks off the bench with 24 points. Didn't really do much else than that, but was able to get those 24 points. He's been looking great now that he's on the bench, no longer starting. Dyson Daniels killing it on the defense. He contributed with some points, 9 points. He had 2 blocks in this game, 7 rebounds. There were several Hawks players that came through, which we couldn't really say for the Knicks. I mean, Cat had a great game for the most part. He had 19 and 19. 19 points, 19 rebounds for the big purr. But Jalen Brunson, what's been going on with him? He hasn't really been shining in the way that a lot of people thought. Like, some people thought he might be an MVP caliber player this year. But he's been having his ups and downs. In this game, he had 14 points, 5 of 15 shooting. That's 33.333% from the field. OG as well, not the best shooting game for him. 13 points, 5 of 17 shooting, 1 for 9 for him. Mikal Bridge, for from 3. I should specify. Mikal Bridges was 1 for 5 from 3. So that's not good. And yeah, I feel like a big part of the reason why the Knicks ended up losing is the depth. Like, although the starting five on paper looks great, um, when they don't come through, and knowing that the bench isn't the best, they're gonna get whooped because that's what happened here. The Hawks, maybe their starting five doesn't look perfect on paper, but with the bench contribution, it helped a lot. Again, DeAndre Hunter had 24 points off the bench. The bench is really what made a big difference in this game. So, yeah. Last thing I'll say is Trae Young. He's so cold. He is so cold. He's like a cold-blooded player. I love this guy. He is such a fun player. Maybe I'm changing my mind once again. Maybe he is better than John Moran. Like just because he has just a cool villain aesthetic to him. Doing that dice roll on the Knicks logo. I don't know if you saw the video of him heading back into um, the locker room, but when he was like leaving the arena and all the Knicks players were booing him, there was a fan that the title of the video said the fan was mocking him by doing this and like mocking like how Trae Young does this when like he's hot. He does this because like he's Ice Trae, he's cold blooded, and Trae Young responded by like putting his hand out for like a handshake, and the fan went for it, and then Trae Young just took the hand back and like psyched him and walked away. I thought it was really funny. Part of me felt like maybe that was a Hawks fan not mocking him, but like trying to celebrate with him. But nevertheless, it was kind of funny seeing how mad the fan got when Trae Young walked away. He's just a true villain. And this is kind of what we need. We need rivalries back. And although the Hawks haven't been the best, it's cool seeing that they're still good enough to beat the Knicks when it matters the most. And the Knicks fans being so pissed is very funny to watch. So I hope this continues. I hope we see them again in the playoffs and the Hawks can win another series. That would be really cool. That would be ideal. But yeah, for now, this has been pretty cool to watch. And I'm not even like a Knicks hater like that, but Trae Young is just so cool that I kind of want to see it happen again.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, with so many of the things you said, honestly, starting off with the fact that I am also not a Knicks hater. Matter of fact, I actually like their current team a lot. But seeing how Trey like embraces the rivalry, if you want to call it a rivalry, which kind of is due to the what the fans are doing, but um, I just feel like that's what makes it so fun to watch, honestly. And yes, it would be very awesome to see these teams match up again in the playoffs. Um, that being said, a few other things you mentioned. One of the things being that you kind of change your mind a lot between the Trey and John Morant thing. I think that's understandable because I feel like they're very neck and neck, honestly. And they're both great in their own different ways. Like, now, obviously, if you're talking about like who is the better leader for their team, even I don't really even know how exactly to answer that question. Because like I want it's like when you think about that, I want to say Ja, but at the same time Trey took his team to the conference finals and Ja has not done that. So there's that. And I know it's a team game, so I feel like that is somewhat of an unfair assessment, but it definitely needs to play a little bit of factor. But Yeah, I think they're definitely a toss up, and it's a tough choice picking between the two. But just a small comment. I like how when you were talking about Jalen Brunson's field goal percentage, you got extra specific with the 33.3333% because it is a lot of threes. So very interesting number there.
It's the inner
Um,
math
but
major in me.
nonetheless,
I had to do it.
yeah, and I don't blame you. And that's where like math majors come in extra handy and sometimes clutch even situations like this because yeah, very interesting statistic that it's like actually all threes. Yeah, overall, I definitely do agree. This was a very good, entertaining, shifty game. This is one where we both got incorrect, actually. We both thought that the Knicks were going to win. But I think it's safe to say we're not necessarily mad that the Hawks won. It was just shocking that they won, um, which sets up the Bucks and the Hawks, not the Bucks and the Knicks in Vegas. And we will talk about that one soon. But I think now that we have talked about all of the um, first round of the knockout stages games, I think we can talk about the semifinal round matchups that are going to be happening tomorrow, which is Saturday, starting with the Thunder and the Rockets. Um, so I guess I can get this one started. Just a little bit of background context. So far in the season series, the two teams have played twice, and both teams have won one time each. OKC won the first game handily, 126 to 107 in OKC, and then the second game was a much closer, more competitive, and entertaining watch as the Rockets barely won the close one in Houston, 119 to 116, just 2 weeks ago. And so that puts us to this game for with the NBA Cup championship game on the line. Now, both teams are having really great seasons, under from top to bottom, looking like arguably the best team in the league. And the Rockets are also looking very good. That being said, I think for the Rockets to have a chance, they will really need their defense to come in clutch. It has been very good throughout much of the season, and they were able to get the job done with the Warriors because of their defense for a good amount of this game. That being said, I expect this to be a close and competitive game early, but ultimately, I do expect OKC to pull off the win. Now, I think that I think that if it was the Thunder and the Warriors, it maybe would be. I mean, it's actually hard for me to say. I was gonna say maybe that matchup would have been more entertaining, but quite honestly, I think this is gonna be an entertaining matchup too. So, nonetheless, I think that one would have been more interesting due to the established. I mean, technically, you can call OKC and Houston rivals because they did meet in many playoff matchups. But I just think of like OKC and Golden State as more a bigger rivalry because like those there's clearly bad blood between like the fan bases. And obviously like the KD thing where he left OKC for Golden State was a huge factor in all that. But nonetheless, I think this will be a really good rivalry match as well. I think it'll be close for a good amount, but ultimately OKC will pull off and win this one, punching themselves to the championship game of the NBA Cup. So I think now I will hand over the reins to Memo. What are your thoughts and predictions on this matchup?
I agree. I think the Rockets are gonna lose because there's gonna be a lot of things that needs to go right for the Rockets in order for them to win. For example, Jalen Green can't have another bad game. They were able to pull it off against the Warriors, but they barely pulled it off. So they're gonna need his offensive power, uh, most definitely. I'm assuming though that the Thunder defense will slow him down. Uh, like if they were able to take down Luka, they're probably gonna take down Jalen Green, if we're gonna be completely honest. But yeah, he has to have a great game. Albert Sengun needs to have like a career defining game, in my opinion. I don't think 26 points will cut it this time. He needs to go in like the 30 range, I believe, because in my opinion, the probably the weakest defender in the starting five is probably Isaiah Hartenstein, even though he is a good defender. Um, uh, they just don't have a lot of bigs in OKC, and Sengun plays like a big man, so uh, he's probably gonna have to be carrying the offensive load, in my opinion. Their defense needs to be elite. They need to continue doing that, which I'm sure will happen. But they really need to do that because Shea can score like crazy. J Dub is very good as well. They need to slow him down as well. And the Rockets probably do have the personnel to slow them down a bit. But with all that said, I think that's just a bit too much for the Rockets to handle. They're still a young team. They were able to surprise us all against Golden State, but that was Golden State. Now we're talking about the big boys, the OKC Thunder, who have been dominant this whole season, this entire tournament. Entire tournament. It's been one game, but the entire NBA Cup is what I meant to say. Shea is playing once again like an MVP caliber player. So yeah, I think the depth of OKC is just a lot better. Even though the Rockets do have great depth as well, they have great players coming off the bench. I think it'll be too much to handle though. So I agree. I think the Thunder will go to the finals. And yeah, who? Let's move on. Unless wait, do you have anything else you want to say before we move on?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think you put the nail in the coffin after leaving off of what I said. So I think it's just safe to say that we both agreed that the Thunder will pull off with the victory here, punching their ticket to the championship game. So I think we can move on to the prediction for the Eastern Conference semifinal matchup between the Bucks and the Hawks, which also happened to be another matchup from that same 2021 playoffs where the Knicks and Hawks played. So, yeah. So both teams are currently on a roll and playing great after somewhat slow starts, primarily on the Bucks side. And on paper, you could argue this should easily be a Bucks win, but with how gritty the Hawks have been lately, and we all know how strange of a team they've been. I mean, like, they'll beat some of the best teams and then they'll lose some of the worst teams. But that being said, I expect it to be a close game. Ultimately, I think the Bucks will come out on top and punch their ticket to go to the NBA Cup Finals against the Thunder. I know I didn't necessarily say too much there, but Memo, I'm gonna let you take it away and add your thoughts on this matchup.
For me, this was actually really tough. If you told me like a month ago, I probably would have leaned towards the Bucks, even though they weren't that great a month ago. But both teams have been just surpassing expectations as of late. They've been both very surprising. So it's hard to say which team I think will win. I was kind of hoping you'd say more to help convince me which team a bit more. Ultimately, I did lean more towards the Bucks. I just trust in Giannis a lot. And Giannis and Dame have been clicking as of late, and we saw it pan out perfectly against the Magic, where Giannis killed it for 3 quarters and Dame killed it for the final quarter when he was needed the most during clutch time. I'm sure that could definitely happen again. And on the Hawks side, I'm sure they're gonna play great, but are they gonna be able to replicate the same performance from um, the Knicks game? I'm not sure. I don't know if DeAndre Hunter is gonna score 24 points off the bench again, or Jalen Johnson uh, contributing from 21 with 21. Trae Young could be streaky at times too. So yeah, there's just a little bit more question marks for them. I think. Um, I'm sure Chris Middleton will come through and finally score. He didn't score the last game in his 20 minutes, but he was playmaking pretty well. Um, so if he somehow gets going, then it's wraps. It's wraps if Chris Middleton is able to get going. But yeah, I'm going with the Bucks. I'm not like I would have put money on it, but I'm gonna go with the Bucks because I trust in Giannis, and I'm starting to trust in Dame as well. So we're both going with OKC and the Bucks. Should we talk about the final?
Yeah, I think that would be a good time for us to segue into our NBA Cup final prediction. And so now that we have made our predictions for the semifinals, they have both predicted a Thunder versus Bucks NBA Cup championship matchup. And quite honestly, if this is indeed the matchup that we get, I think of it as like like a dream matchup, honestly. I like both teams a lot. Both teams have some really good players that I like also. Superstars, like obviously OKC has Shea. They have Jalen J Dub is really good. And then a lot of good young talent. Chet is obviously out, but still on the roster. And then for the Bucks, we got Giannis, Dame, Middleton, and some good supporting pieces as well. That being said, I think it will be a close game for a good chunk, and it will be the two teams taking back and forth jabs. Of course, it's a championship game, so both teams are going to put their all to try to take home the money. But ultimately, I think OKC will be too much for the Bucks to handle just because they are so deep from top to bottom, and it's going to be a tall task for them to capture. So that being said, I predict the Oklahoma City Thunder to be the 2024 NBA Cup champions. Memo, initial thoughts on the prediction of our championship matchup.
Quick question: was this your final prediction from last week? Did you say it was
It
OKC versus
was.
Bucks?
Yeah, that's it. That is what I predicted. Yeah. So the only thing is, I predicted it to be Bucks over Knicks, and then Thunder versus Bucks instead of Bucks versus Hawks. That's the only difference. But I did predict Thunder and Bucks though.
Okay, so in a way, you were able to still get it right if
Stay
everything
alive.
still plans out. But that's
Yeah, a
what's
chance.
interesting about these knockout rounds. It's like even though we're trying to come up with our predictions, we're trying to use analytics, the eye test, statistics to figure out who will most likely win. Anything could happen during the knockout games, and that's what makes these games so exciting to watch. So, yeah, going into this, I really don't have much to say. I said this in the last episode. This is OKC's cup to lose. They have been one of the best teams in the league. Number one defense, MVP caliber player with Shea. They are the Celtics of the West, for crying out loud. They play like exactly the same. They have crazy perimeter defense, a big man that can stretch the floor and block shots and somehow is always injured, just like Boston. They both have MVP caliber players. They both have a solid number two guy. Uh, and we saw how great the Celtics were last year, and we're seeing how great the Thunder are this year. They play great defense. They shoot a lot of threes. I don't think the Bucks have the perimeter defense to slow down the threes. I will say though, maybe the Bucks will take it because they do have two good luck charms. Darvin Ham and Torian Prince, who have never lost an NBA Cup game. Which is kind of funny. Though those two are undefeated in NBA Cup play, but jokes aside, I don't think the Bucks defense are going to be able to slow down OKC. I'm sure Giannis and Dame will have great games, but will the rest of the team be great? I don't know. So yeah, I just like you. I don't really have much to say because again, I think this is OKC's cup to lose. So if they do lose, I'd actually be pretty surprised.
Yeah, can't argue there. OKC is top to bottom the best remaining team in the NBA Cup, and arguably the best team in the league if you think about it. And what you said is technically true. I mean, Darvin Ham and Torian Prince are undefeated in the NBA Cup still. Um, will it be able to continue? To be determined. But so far, so good for them. Don't know if they'll be able to win two in a row. That would be something else if they did, though, not gonna lie. It's quite hilarious to think about. Yeah. On top of that, Doc Rivers over there. Obviously, well, technically he's undefeated too. Just he played in less games because he didn't play in any last year, only this year. Or correction, not play, a part of, because he's coaching, not playing. But point being made is we'll see if the Bucks undefeated NBA. I mean, not Bucks. Arvin and Torian's undefeated streak will be able to continue. I think their luck will continue for the next game and end against OKC. But nonetheless, I think that would be a very good matchup. Potentially a caliber NBA Finals potential, but I just don't know if the Bucks are there. So, yeah, I think this would be a fun matchup in the meantime. And if OKC does end up winning the NBA Cup, I do believe there is a strong chance they could end up being that team that is the first to do it, winning both the NBA Cup and the NBA Championship. It's possible. Last year, I mean, Lakers unfortunately were not the same team after the NBA Cup. So that wasn't meant to be for them to be the first team to do both in one season. OKC though, they do it. I think it's very possible. So yeah, I think that it has been determined that we both predict OKC to win the NBA Cup of 2024, same as we predicted last week. It's just the time is approaching very soon. But is there anything else you would like to talk about regarding the finals matchup?
Nah, I think we're good here. I think we did a good job doing a little rundown on all these games. We'll see how this episode age because again, the semifinals are tomorrow. So yeah, I'll be watching. I'll be taking my notes, and then hopefully everything went as we predicted. Because if it doesn't, I'm gonna cringe a lot. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. These single game knockout like NBA Cup is kind of low key more interesting than the NBA playoffs because it's a one and you're out. I mean, like playoffs is probably more fair. I think that the best of seven more well determines who the better team really is. If it was one game, that flukes are very likely to happen, but single death makes it definitely much more intense. So definitely really cool that the NBA is integrated this idea so that we could see how teams would fare in both situations, single death and the actual best of seven. So yeah, definitely will be fun.
Yeah, but I guess that's it for us. So thank you all for watching. Make sure you like the video if you're on YouTube, subscribe if you're on YouTube, leave a comment. If you are on audio platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating and review. We would appreciate that a lot. Follow our socials. I made a few TikToks last week. I probably should have made more. I did a couple prediction videos. But yeah, look out for those. And yeah, one more emphasis on the subscribing part. We want to continue growing this channel. We want to go to Vegas next year and watch these games live. So help us out and help us grow. So maybe we could have that opportunity next year. But anything you want to say, Hoops, before we go?
Yeah, pretty much just mirroring what Memo said. Thank you guys as always for the constant support for our channel. We greatly appreciate it. We could not be where we are today without you, without their help. And yeah, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share if you like our content. And when you and please do continue to subscribe as Memo did share because like it would be very cool if we could go for the NBA Cup next year. And if so, potentially more content for you guys, like a possible vlog. That would be fun. And yeah, definitely make sure you guys stay tuned with our content. We're going to keep on delivering interesting material. And if you like it, yeah, stay tuned, like, comment, subscribe, share. And we look forward to continuing to entertain you guys.
But yeah, that's it for us. We'll see you all next week. Goodbye.